The television courtroom had seen arrogance before, but never anything like this, not from a teenager, not from someone this entitled, and certainly not from the son of one of America's richest men. The moment Ethan Cole walked through the courtroom doors, every person in that room, audience, officers, even the camera crew, felt something shift in the air. It wasn't just disrespect. It was the thick, suffocating presence of someone who believed the world existed purely for his convenience. He didn't glance at the plaintiff's table. He didn't acknowledge the bailiff. He didn't even look at Judge Judy. He walked in scrolling through his $4,000 titanium phone, chewing gum like he was bored, waiting for a valet to bring his car around. This was not a young man who feared consequences. This was someone raised to believe that consequences were for everyone else. The case on paper was simple: reckless driving, parking in a handicapped spot, damaging another driver's bumper, refusing to pay the fees, and insulting an officer who had been doing his job. But what the cameras captured that day, what made this moment explode across the internet with 10 million views in 48 hours, was not the case. It was one single gesture, one moment so disrespectful, so dripping with elitism that it detonated a courtroom explosion America never forgot. Judge Judy asked for his ticket. That was it. A calm, professional request. "Mr. Cole, hand me the citation, please." Ethan didn't hand it to her. He didn't even look up. He flicked his eyes upward just long enough to show her that he recognized who she was and didn't care. Then, with the casual confidence of someone tossing trash into a bin, he threw the ticket onto her bench. Not slid, not placed. Through a sloppy, dismissive two-finger flick that sent the folded paper skidding across the judge's desk and landing inches from her robe. The courtroom gasped. A few people instinctively leaned back as if expecting lightning to strike. Officer Ramirez stiffened. The plaintiff, Lauren Hayes, clapped a hand over her mouth. Even the cameraman whispered something that the mic barely caught. "This kid is done." But Ethan wasn't done. He leaned back in his chair, stretched his arms behind his head, and smirked. "They're happy," he said loud enough for the entire room to hear. "My dad pays more in taxes in a minute than you make in a year. Just sign whatever you need to sign so I can leave." That was the moment the internet fell silent. It was the moment that replayed thousands of times in reaction videos around the world. It was the moment Judge Judy's expression changed from patient irritation to something far more dangerous: restrained fury. Her eyes narrowed, not in confusion, not in surprise, but in a way only one type of person ever sees: the people who trigger her instinct that something rotten lies beneath the surface. Ethan didn't know it, but Judge Judy had already done her homework. She knew the whispers about the Cole family. She knew about the quietly settled incidents, the police reports that never became cases, the victims who disappeared behind settlement agreements. She knew this wasn't some harmless rich kid being dramatic. This was someone who had been shielded by wealth so completely that he no longer understood the meaning of accountability. And today he had thrown that arrogance directly at the wrong woman. What the audience didn't know, what Ethan himself didn't know, was that Judy had reviewed his record before he even stepped foot in her courtroom. She had recognized his name instantly. His father, Richard Cole, was a billionaire known for philanthropy, praise from politicians, and glossy magazine features about America's favorite tech visionary. But behind the PR there were cracks. Cracks filled with expensive lawyers, NDAs, investigations that vanished, and a son who treated life like a game with unlimited retries. The ticket Ethan threw wasn't just a ticket. It was the symbol of every consequence he had avoided in his life, and Judy saw it land on her bench like a personal challenge. She picked up the ticket slowly, not angrily, slowly. The way a surgeon picks up a scalpel before a difficult operation. The room went dead quiet. "Mr. Cole," she said, her voice low, almost gentle, "did you just throw this at me?" Ethan shrugged, actually shrugged. "Can we hurry this up? I have lunch reservations." The audacity, the disrespect, the chilling confidence of someone who didn't believe a judge had authority over him. Judy inhaled deeply, and then the shift happened. "Stand up," she said. The command sliced through the room like a blade. Ethan smirked but obeyed, rolling his eyes. In that moment, the audience didn't know exactly what was coming. They didn't know that Judy was about to reveal things that would shatter Ethan's confidence, his public image, even his family legacy. They didn't know this hearing would spiral into a national scandal that would dominate headlines. Billionaire. Ray's son humiliated on TV. Judge Judy exposes hidden record, privilege meets justice. But they felt it. Everyone felt the storm building. And Ethan, the boy who had thrown his ticket at a judge, was standing directly in its path. Ethan stood with the lazy posture of someone waiting for a butler to bring him sparkling water. Judge Judy watched him carefully, not reacting to his smirk, not responding to his eye rolls, not even blinking at his arrogance. The silence stretched long enough that even Ethan's confidence wavered for half a second. Then Judy spoke. "Mr. Cole," she said slowly. "How old are you?" 19, he replied, tone dripping with boredom. 19, Judy repeated as if tasting the number. "And in these 19 years, how many times have you been cited for reckless behavior?" Ethan laughed, actually laughed. "You can ask my assistant, I don't keep track of the little stuff." The audience gasped. Judy didn't. Instead, she reached for a folder, a thick one, a very thick one. The kind of folder that meant she had something that Ethan and likely his extremely expensive attorney team never imagined she would get her hands on. "This," she said calmly, tapping the folder with her finger, "is your driving record." Ethan's smirk twitched just slightly. His confidence didn't collapse, it cracked. A tiny fleeting crack, but Judy saw it. Judy always saw it. She opened the folder. 6 speeding warnings. She read, not tickets, warnings. 2 citations for reckless driving that somehow never proceeded to court. A hit-and-run that was closed due to insufficient evidence. And a parking violation in a fire lane that disappeared the same day it was filed. The room froze. Officer Ramirez's jaw clenched. Lauren Hayes looked stunned. The audience muttered among themselves. Ethan swallowed but forced a smile, trying to regain control. "My dad handled all that," he said, shrugging, "because none of it was serious." Judy snapped her head up, her eyes hardened. "Handled, interesting choice of word." Ethan opened his mouth to answer, but Judy cut him off with a raised hand. "No, I'm not finished." She turned a page in her folder. "This case began with a parking violation, Mr. Cole. You parked in a handicapped spot at a community grocery store." "Why?" "Because," Ethan replied bluntly, "all the other spots were full. You knowingly parked where disabled people are legally protected to park because you were inconvenienced." Ethan rolled his eyes so hard it bordered on theatrical. "Look, there were 8 handicapped spots. None of them were being used. It's not a big deal." Judy's voice sharpened with a sudden intensity that sliced through the air. "It is a big deal to someone who needs it. It is a big deal to the law, and it is a big deal to me. But I was only there for 2 minutes." Ethan snapped. Lauren finally spoke. 2 minutes. "You were inside for at least 10. I waited because your car was blocking my access ramp." Ethan turned toward her, expression dripping with contempt. "Did I ask you to talk?" The room erupted with shocked murmurs. Even Ethan's arrogance couldn't shield him from the horror on people's faces. Judy's voice cracked like a whip. "Mr. Cole, you will not speak to her that way again. Do I make myself clear?" Ethan looked away and muttered, "Whatever." Judy's eyes narrowed further. She flipped another page. "Let's discuss what happened after you parked illegally. Officer Ramirez approached you and asked you to provide identification. According to his report, you told him." She lifted the paper and read it aloud. "Bro, I don't need to give you anything. My dad owns half the politicians in this city." The courtroom exploded with gasps. Ethan's face went red, not in shame, but in anger at being exposed. "That's not what I..." Judy cut him off. "You said it. It's written here. And Officer Ramirez has a body cam recording of the entire exchange, including the moment you threw the citation onto the ground and told him, and I quote, 'My dad will make this disappear before you finish your shift.'" The body cam detail hit Ethan like a slap. His smirk vanished completely, but Judy was far from done. She reached deeper into the folder. "You know what else is interesting?" she said quietly. Too quietly. "This isn't the first time you've thrown something at an officer. 3 months ago, during a traffic stop, you threw your driver's license at a state trooper. That's not even a crime," Ethan snapped, voice rising in panic. "No," Judy said, "but your attitude is." Then she leaned forward, clasping her hands. But what concerns me far more is what your father did next. The room stilled. Everyone leaned in. Even Ethan's confidence flickered with nervous energy. Now Judy continued, her voice narrowing to a fine, terrifying point. The traffic stop was dismissed. The citations disappeared. The complaint the officer filed vanished from the system. And your father made a charitable donation the same week, $25,000 to the Police Youth Outreach Fund. Ethan's jaw tightened. Judy wasn't accusing, she didn't have to. She was revealing, exposing, letting the pattern speak for itself. This, she said, lifting the entire folder, is a 19-year-old with a documented history of reckless behavior who has never once been held accountable. Ethan shifted in his chair. His breathing quickened. The audience watched transfixed as the boy who threw a ticket at a judge began to understand that this courtroom was different. This judge was different. And this time, Daddy's money wasn't going to save him. Judy closed the folder, folded her hands, and stared at him with a calmness more terrifying than anger. Today, she said, Mr. Cole, accountability has finally arrived. Ethan's cocky posture had evaporated. His arms were no longer behind his head. His smirk had drained into a tight-lipped tension he could barely mask. But the most dangerous sign, the one Judy noticed immediately, was the subtle panic flickering in his eyes. The look of someone who had never once been challenged in his life and suddenly didn't know how to respond. Judge Judy didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even lean forward. She simply observed him the way a surgeon observes a tumor she's preparing to cut out. Mr. Cole, she said evenly, do you know what entitlement looks like? I know, he stammered, caught off guard. It looks exactly like this. She gestured with a small, sharp motion. A young man who thinks the law does not apply to him because of who his father is. Ethan bristled. My father has nothing to do with this. Oh, Judy said, but he does. She reached for another document. This one slimmer but more dangerous. This, she said, holding it up, is a complaint filed by your previous driving instructor. Ethan's head snapped up. What complaint? The one where you told him, and I quote, I don't need to learn how to drive safely. If I get into a crash, my dad will just buy me a new car. The audience reacted with a ripple of disgust. Lauren shook her head. Officer Ramirez glared at Ethan like he was reliving the disrespect firsthand. Even the court reporter paused her typing, eyebrows raised. Ethan's fists clenched. He twisted my words. He snapped. He just didn't like rich people. Wrong, Judy said calmly. He filed that complaint after you caused a near accident in the student parking lot and then refused to apologize. She read directly from the report. Student Ethan Cole accelerated in a crowded school parking lot, nearly striking two pedestrians. When instructed to slow down, he replied, Relax. Nobody here is important enough for it to matter. The room fell silent with horror. Judy let the weight of the words linger before continuing. And according to your school records, this wasn't an isolated incident. You have a documented history of dangerous behavior, disrespect, and escalating entitlement. Ethan's voice cracked. Those records are sealed. They were Judy corrected. Until your attorney submitted this driving case as a small claims dispute, which means your background relevant to your judgment, credibility, and history is admissible. That landed like a punch to Ethan's chest. His jaw dropped. He looked around at the cameras, suddenly aware, painfully aware that millions of people were watching. Your Honor, he said, trying to regain control. You're blowing everything out of proportion. I was just careless. Judy finished, disrespectful, irresponsible. Yes, Mr. Cole, I agree. No, Ethan's voice rose, cracking at the edges. I mean, this isn't fair. You're making me sound like some criminal. Am I? Judy asked calmly. Or are you upset because for the first time in your life someone refuses to clean up your mess? Ethan froze. The truth hit him so hard he physically flinched. Judy continued, let's discuss the incident that brought us here. You threw your ticket at me. You threw your ticket at Officer Ramirez. You threw your weight, your name, and your father's influence around as if the law is something you get to opt out of like a gym membership. Ethan's face turned red. I didn't mean. Yes, Judy said, cutting him off. You did because that's who you've been taught to be. She turned to Lauren Hayes, the plaintiff. M. Hayes, please tell me what happened after Mr. Cole parked in the handicapped space. Lauren took a shaky breath, her voice trembling not from fear but from emotion. He blocked my ramp. I couldn't unload my walker. I hunked for him to move, but he laughed at me. He literally stood there and filmed me struggling, saying, "Hold on. I want to send this to my friends." The audience gasped. Officer Ramirez looked ready to explode. Judy turned sharply to Ethan. "Is that true?" Ethan's lips quivered. "I was joking." "Joking?" Judy repeated, her voice ice cold. "You humiliated a disabled woman trying to access a store and think it was a joke." Ethan rubbed his forehead, his confidence disintegrating. "I didn't know she was disabled," Judy snapped. "You parked in her designated spot. The sign was right." "In front of you," Ethan stuttered. I didn't think it mattered." Judy leaned back, disappointment thick in her tone. "You didn't think people mattered, Mr. Cole. That is the problem." He swallowed hard, suddenly blinking faster. Sweat began gathering on his forehead. The veneer of billionaire privilege was cracking, and Judy wasn't even halfway through dismantling him. She opened another document. "This," she said, "is a letter from your father's legal advisor informing the court that Mr. Richard Cole would like all matters regarding his son to be handled with sensitivity, citing publicity concerns." Ethan closed his eyes. His father tried to intervene. He knew what was coming. He knew his son wasn't built to withstand a public reckoning. But Judy didn't care about PR. She cared about justice. She placed the letter aside and looked directly at Ethan. "Your father may be able to buy cars, lawyers, and silence, but he cannot buy decency. He cannot buy humility, and he cannot buy this courtroom." Ethan's breathing grew shallow. His fingers trembled. The confidence had drained out completely. Gone was the smirk. Gone was the swagger. Gone was the billionaire armor he walked in wearing. For the first time in his life, Ethan Cole understood fear, not of his father, not of consequences he'd never faced before, but of a judge who saw straight through him and wasn't afraid to hold him accountable. Judy folded her hands. "Now," she said softly, "let's talk about your punishment." If Section 3 cracked Ethan's confidence, Section 4 is where it finally shattered. His breathing grew unsteady. His shoulders curled inward, and the bravado he wore like armor began peeling off him piece by piece. He wasn't the billionaire's son anymore. He was a 19-year-old boy standing in front of a judge who wasn't impressed, intimidated, or interested in his last name. Judge Judy watched him with a calmness that made the entire courtroom tense. The kind of calm that comes right before a Category 5 storm. "Mr. Cole," she began, her tone measured, "what do you think should happen when someone behaves recklessly, disrespects the law, endangers others, and shows no remorse?" Ethan didn't answer. Judy pressed on. "Go on. Tell me, what consequence do you believe is fair?" He stared at the floor. "A warning." The courtroom actually laughed. Not cry, just in disbelief. Ethan's head snapped up, eyes darting around, cheeks burning with humiliation. Judy lifted an eyebrow. "A warning after endangering people, mocking a disabled woman, disrespecting an officer, and throwing a ticket at a judge." Ethan swallowed hard. "I didn't mean." "Stop saying that," Judy cut in sharply. "You meant all of it. You did exactly what you wanted to do because no one ever stopped you." Ethan opened his mouth again, but Judy silenced him with a raised hand. "Now, let's introduce something your family has protected you from your entire life, reality." She reached into the folder, this time pulling out a document that made Ethan visibly recoil. "My producer contacted the store manager of the grocery where this incident happened. They forwarded me additional footage from the parking lot." Ethan blanched, his lips tightened, his jaw locked. Judy continued mercilessly. "The footage shows you laughing as Ms. Hayes struggled with her walker. It shows you recording her. It shows you mocking her disability, and it shows you telling your friend on speakerphone, and I quote, 'Watch this lady struggle. It's hilarious.'" The courtroom collectively sucked in a breath of horror. Ethan's voice cracked. "That I didn't know they recorded the lot." Judy leaned forward. "You didn't know because you assumed no one ever holds you accountable, but today they did." Tears began forming in the corners of Ethan's eyes. Upper-class arrogance doesn't disappear gracefully. It collapses violently. And in that moment, Ethan Cole was collapsing. But Judy wasn't done. She lifted a second document. "This is a statement from the grocery store's assistant manager." He said that when he approached you and asked you to move your car, you told him, and again I quote, "Call whoever you want. I don't answer to minimum wage workers." Ethan's voice trembled. I didn't mean that. I was irritated." "No," Judy snapped. "You were cruel, and that is far more dangerous." For the first time he broke. "I was just trying to impress my friends," he whispered, his voice wavering. Judy shook her head. "You weren't impressing anyone. You were humiliating yourself. And now the entire country will see who you really are." Ethan's face twisted in panic. "This is going to be on TV." Judy stared at him with chilling clarity. "Everything here is on TV." He sank into his chair, hands trembling, gripping the edge like it was the last thing grounding him to reality. Then Judy flipped to another document. "Let's talk about your father." Ethan froze. A visible spike of fear shot across his face. "Why? Why do you need to talk about him?" Judy's tone remained steady. But its weight increased. "Because your father emailed this courtroom and attempted to influence today's proceedings." Ethan's eyes went wide. "What?" Judy read directly from the letter. "Please handle Ethan's case with discretion. My son is under significant emotional pressure due to our family's public standing. A harsh ruling could have reputational impact far beyond the courtroom." Ethan buried his hands in his hair. "Oh my God." Judy placed the letter on the bench. "Your father isn't concerned about you, Mr. Cole. He's concerned about his image, about the headlines, about investors, not about your character." Ethan looked shattered. "And do you want to know something else?" Judy continued. "Your father attempted to send a representative to sit in this courtroom. My producer denied him entry because this case is not his case. It's yours." Ethan squeezed his eyes shut, overwhelmed, embarrassed, afraid. Judy didn't slow down. She wasn't trying to destroy him. She was trying to break through a lifetime of privilege shielding him from the consequences of his actions. She softened her voice just slightly. "Mr. Cole, you have been fed a lie your entire life. The lie that money shields you. The lie that influence equals immunity. The lie that what you do doesn't matter." Ethan looked up, tears now running freely. Judy finished the sentence for him, but today those lies end. The room was silent. She leaned forward, voice cold and unshakable. "Because in my courtroom, Mr. Cole, everyone is equal, and you are about to face the same consequences as any 19-year-old who endangered others, mocked a disabled woman, disrespected an officer, and disrespected a judge." Ethan's chest rose and fell rapidly. He looked like a boy, finally realizing he was no longer in a sandbox. He was in a courtroom with real stakes, and the hammer was about to fall. The courtroom felt like the air had thickened. Even the cameras seemed to zoom in tighter, as if the entire world instinctively sensed this was the moment everything would come crashing down. Ethan sat hunched over, staring at the floor, shaking not from anger, but from the cold reality that his father's name, his wealth, his privilege, none of it mattered here. Judge Judy took a breath, folded her hands, and spoke with the kind of calm that made grown attorneys break into sweat. "Mr. Cole," she began. And up. Ethan rose slowly, legs trembling. He looked like someone who hadn't stood for himself a single day in his life. "Look at me," Judy said. He did, and the moment their eyes met, he broke. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Your Honor, I'm sorry." The courtroom went silent, not out of sympathy but shock. This was the first real apology Ethan Cole had ever said without being coached. Judy didn't blink. "You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught." Ethan's face collapsed. His lips trembled. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The truth crushed him before the consequences even arrived. Judy continued mercilessly. "You mocked a disabled woman. You used a handicapped spot because you felt entitled to convenience. You disrespected a police officer doing his job. You came into my courtroom and threw your ticket at me like I was beneath you. And all of this stems from one thing. You believe you are untouchable." Ethan's shoulders sank deeper. Judy leaned forward, her voice sharp as a blade. "But today, Mr. Cole, you will learn what the real world looks like." She turned to Ms. Hayes. "First, I am awarding the plaintiff the full $2,500 for damages, emotional distress, and the disruption your behavior caused." Ethan nodded shakily. "Okay, I'll pay." Judy's eyebrow arched. "You will pay." "No, Mr. Cole, you will not pay. Your father will try to pay. But I'm putting this judgment in your name only, and it will stay on your record until every penny is paid out of your own earned income." Ethan's mouth fell open. His knees nearly buckled. He had never paid a bill in his life. Judy wasn't done. "Second," she said, "I am ordering 120 hours of community service." His head shot up. "What? Where?" Judy's voice dropped with deadly precision. "At the Downtown Disability Resource Center." Gasps, murmurs, a few quiet cheers. Ethan's face turned white. He shook his head slowly like he was pleading without words. "No," Judy said. "We're not negotiating. You will spend 120 hours assisting the very community you disrespected. You will clean therapy equipment. You will help maintain the parking lot. You will assist disabled patrons with transport and mobility devices." Tears rolled down his cheeks now. Real, unfiltered, painful. Lauren Hayes wiped her own eyes but didn't look away. She wanted him to see her watching. Judy continued. "Third, I am ordering a mandatory safe driving program and psychological evaluation. You will attend every session. You will complete every assignment. And if you fail to comply, this entire case will be reopened with additional penalties." But Ethan's voice cracked. "Your hun. Or my father." "Your father," Judy said sharply, "is not on trial. You are." Ethan lowered his head. Reality had finally crushed through a lifetime of privilege, but the courtroom hadn't seen anything yet. Because at that exact moment the doors opened and in walked Richard Cole, the billionaire himself. Gasps echoed across the room. Phone cameras rose instantly. A man worth billions, wearing a $6,000 suit, marched toward the bench with the desperation of someone whose empire had been threatened. "Your Honor," he said sternly, "I believe this has gone far enough." Judy didn't stand, she didn't flinch, she didn't blink. "It certainly has," she replied. "Sit down, Mr. Cole." No one had ever spoken to Richard Cole like that. His nostrils flared, his jaw tightened, but he sat. Ethan turned toward him, ugly tears streaming down his face. "Dad, I'm in trouble." For the first time, Richard's confidence wavered. His son wasn't arrogant anymore. He was terrified. Judy addressed him directly. "Your son didn't need money. He didn't need lawyers. He didn't need influence. He needed discipline. He needed accountability. He needed to hear no. And he hasn't heard that word in a very long time." Richard's face flushed with humiliation. Cameras captured every second. Judy turned back to Ethan. "Finally," she said, "I am referring this case to the DMV for immediate review of your license." Ethan's mouth trembled. "Are you taking my license?" "I'm recommending suspension until you complete every required program. When you have proven that you can behave like a responsible adult, then and only then will you drive again." Ethan let out a broken sob. His father closed his eyes in defeat. Judy delivered the final blow with a voice that echoed across every social media platform within hours. "You threw your ticket at me because you thought I was beneath you. But today, Mr. Cole, you learned a lesson billions of dollars can't buy. Respect." Her gavel hit the bench like thunder. Judgment for the plaintiff. Ethan collapsed into his father's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The billionaire held him, ashamed not of the consequences but of the son he helped create. The courtroom audience erupted in applause. Officer Ramirez nodded with satisfaction. Lauren Hayes exhaled a breath she'd been holding for months. Judge Judy stood, her expression firm but proud, knowing she just delivered one of the most impactful rulings of her career. Because justice didn't just happen today. It slammed the door in entitlement's face.